At my Thanksgiving dinner, my son slid a quitclaim deed across the table and said, "Just transfer the lake house before dessert." I smiled, reached into my coat pocket, and pulled out the envelope that put an end to his little plan. My name is Walter. I'm 58 years old. And until that Thanksgiving, I thought I knew exactly who my son was. Mark had always been the golden boy, captain of his high school team, first in his family to get a business degree, the kind of son you bragged about at the barbershop. After his mother passed 4 years ago, he started coming around more. I thought it was grief pulling him closer to me. I told myself that for 4 years. That Thanksgiving, the table was full. My daughter-in-law, Renee, was fussing over the turkey like she'd cooked it herself, even though I'd been up since 5 in the morning doing it. My grandkids were arguing about a video game. And Mark, my son, sat across from me with a folder tucked under his chair the whole meal, like he was waiting for the right moment. The moment came right after the green beans went around. "Dad," he said, not even looking up from his plate, "we need to talk about the lake house. Renee, and I think it makes sense to just transfer it into our names now. Before dessert, if we can. Saves everybody the headache later." He said it the way you'd ask someone to pass the gravy. I set my fork down slowly. The lake house wasn't just property to me. Your mother and I bought that place the year you were born. I want to say we painted that dock ourselves. She died in the bedroom upstairs, looking out at the water, because that's where she asked to be. But I didn't say any of that. Not yet. Why the rush, Mark? I asked instead, keeping my voice even. Renee jumped in before he could answer. "It's just easier for tax purposes, Walter. And honestly, at your age, you shouldn't be dealing with the upkeep alone anymore." At my age, I was 58. I'd carried that woman's groceries up 2 flights of stairs a week before. Mark finally looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen since he was a teenager caught in a lie. "We already talked to a lawyer," he said. "We just need your signature." That's when I reached into my coat pocket, the one hanging on the back of my chair, and pulled out an envelope I'd been carrying around for exactly this kind of moment. I'd had it for 3 weeks. I just didn't think I'd need it on Thanksgiving. "Before we get to your paperwork," I said, "let's look at mine." I slid the envelope across the table, past the cranberry sauce, and set it down in front of Mark. Renee's eyes followed it like a hawk. "What is this?" Mark asked, his voice smaller than I'd heard it in years. "Open it." He opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from my attorney and a printed appraisal. The lake house wasn't just sitting there collecting dust. 2 months ago, I'd had it appraised because a developer had approached me about buying the whole stretch of shoreline for a new resort project. The number on that appraisal made Renee's fork stop halfway to her mouth. "I've been thinking about selling it," I said. "Not to you, to them." The room went quiet. Even the grandkids stopped arguing. "You can't do that," Mark said. "That house is supposed to be ours. Mom would have wanted." "Don't," I said, and I didn't raise my voice, but something in it made him stop cold. "Don't tell me what your mother would have wanted. I was married to her for 31 years. I know exactly what she wanted, and it wasn't this. It wasn't you and Renee cornering me at a holiday dinner with a deed already drawn up, expecting me to sign my life away before pie." Renee tried to recover her footing. "Walter, we just thought, since you're getting older, it would be safer if the house was already in our name. In case anything happened to you. In case anything happened to me," I repeated. "Funny, I don't remember either of you calling to check on me after the funeral. Not once in 4 years did either of you ask how I was sleeping in that empty house alone. But you sure remember the deed." Mark's jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I let out a short laugh, not a happy one. "Let me tell you what's fair. The first Christmas after your mother died, I sat in that lake house by myself because you two had already booked a trip to Renee's parents. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be the guilt-tripping old man. I lit the fireplace. I made coffee for 2 out of habit, and I poured the second cup down the sink because there was nobody to drink it. That's fair, Mark. That's what fair actually looks like in this family." The table went quiet again. Even Renee, for once, didn't have a quick answer ready. "I'm not telling you that to punish you," I said, softer now. I'm telling you because you don't get to talk to me about what's safer for me, what's easier on taxes, what your mother would have wanted, until you've sat in that house alone the way I have. I let that sit for a second before I went on. And what also not fair, I said, is finding out 3 weeks ago that you two have already met with a realtor about the lake house. Without me, while I'm still alive and still own it. His face went pale. He hadn't expected me to know that part. How did you? Your cousin Danny mentioned it at his daughter's birthday. I said. He thought I already knew. I didn't. So I made a few calls of my own. I reached over and took the appraisal letter back, folding it carefully, the way I used to fold the newspaper for your mother every morning before work. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm not selling the lake house to the developer. I thought about it. I won't lie to you, but I'm not doing it out of spite either. And I'm not doing it for you too. I'm doing it because your mother is buried with a view of that water in her heart. Even if her body isn't there, that house stays in the family. But it stays in my name, and it stays under my rules until I decide otherwise. Dad, we didn't mean... You meant exactly what you said, Mark, before dessert. You wanted it signed and done before I even had a chance to think. That's not a son asking his father for help planning the future. That's a man trying to take something from his father while his guard is down. Renee opened her mouth again, and I held up a hand, the same way I used it when he was 12 and trying to talk his way out of trouble. I'm not finished, I said. Starting this week, I'm putting the lake house in a trust. It'll pass to Mark eventually, the way his mother and I always planned. But not because anyone pressured me at a dinner table, and not on a timeline anyone but me decides. I could see Mark calculating, trying to find an angle, the way he used to negotiate his curfew. But there wasn't one this time. And one more thing, I added, I'm not signing anything else tonight. Not deeds, not POAs, nothing. If you want to talk about the future of that house like adults, you call me, you sit down with me, and you ask me like I still have a say in my own life. Because I do. Nobody touched dessert that night. Mark drove home in silence. And Renee didn't say a word to me on the way out, just a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's been 2 months since that Thanksgiving. Mark called me last week. Actually called, not texted, and asked if he could come up to the lake house this weekend. Just the two of us. No Renee, no kids. He said he wanted to see where Mom used to sit by the water. I told him I'd put the coffee on. He showed up Saturday morning, earlier than I expected, with 2 coffees in his hands instead of 1. We sat on the dock for a long time without saying much, just watching the water the way his mother used to. Eventually, he told me he'd been having a hard time at home, that things with Renee had gotten tense since Thanksgiving, that he kept replaying the dinner table in his head and not liking what he saw of himself. I should have asked you, he said. Not told you. Yes, I said. You should have. He nodded. And for the first time in 4 years, he didn't try to fix it with a quick apology and a change of subject. He just sat there with me, in the quiet, like he used to as a boy before life got complicated and convenient all at once. I don't know if that one afternoon will fix 4 years of distance built on convenience instead of love, but I know I'll be sitting on that dock when he pulls in again, in the home your grandmother and I built together, on my own terms, finally, for the first time since she passed. If you've ever had to remind your own family that respect doesn't come with a deadline, hit that subscribe button, because this is exactly the kind of story we tell here on Dad's Secret Life.